why perhaps police are either feeling more emboldened to act the way they are in relation to these show directions is because of the messaging that comes from Dan. He's not...
From Dan? You guys don't listen to Dan, you listen to Shane, right?
Well, everybody listens to Daniel Andrews. He's the Premier of our state and he tells us what to do on a daily basis. I challenge him to do that because if Daniel Andrews is as popular as he thinks he is, then everybody who supports Daniel Andrews can also come out and protest in favour of him. And Victoria Police can facilitate both sides. And let's see where the numbers fall. As I won't be a police officer after the end of this interview. I don't know how closely tied Shane Patton is to Dan Andrews and how that relationship works in terms of there being a separation of government and police.
It seems to be breaking down.
And it really does seem to be that relationship has become more close and more comfortable than the community should be happy with. I think that there's supposed to be that separation.
I put it to Kel Glairson, the former Chief Commissioner. I said, people are seeing VicPol as an extended arm, a political arm of the Andrews government.
Yeah.
To my shock, he said, yes, I think that's correct, they are.
I agree with him.
Krystle, I'm nervous.
So am I.
Because you are an active serving sworn member of Victoria Police, right?
I am, yes.
You don't understand how much I avoid you guys. When I go out for a ride on my, what are we at now? 2 hours we're allowed to...
I think so, yes, 2 hours.
Yeah. If I'm out riding by myself on the trails and I go slightly beyond my 5 kilometres to 6 or 25, I see you guys on the streets and I want nothing to do with you. So I'm quite nervous that I have VicPol in my studio.
You know, it's funny, I feel exactly the same way when I'm in plain clothes and I'm out exercising. And
really?
I walk past police. I have that same level of apprehension. I have a medical exemption and I don't wear a mask.
But so, you are the police. Like, look at the number of chevrons on your shoulder.
Well, I'm an acting Senior Sergeant.
Okay. Acting Senior Sergeant Krystle Mitchell joins us on the show today. It is an honour to have you here, though a little bit scary. I'm honoured that you would choose to come on here. Why are you here?
Well, I'm here for a number of reasons, but I think firstly I probably just want to talk about, who I am and the career that I've had with Victoria Police, and then get into why I came here, because there was a big... thought process and battle of morals and integrity within me about what I wanted to do and how I see my organisation being used during this pandemic, and it troubled me greatly. I've been in the police force for 16 years and I currently work at Gender Equality and Inclusion Command. It's the best job I've ever had in Victoria Police. I love it. I love my job. I love what I get to do for the organisation in terms of creating an equitable and fair workplace for everybody. My bosses are great. My work is great. I couldn't be happier in terms of the work that I do on a daily basis. But behind that is all of my friends that are police officers that are working the front line and are suffering every day, enforcing show directions that the vast majority, or certainly a great majority, don't believe in and don't want to enforce. And
do you mean, when you say majority, do you mean more than 50%? Literally the definition of majority? Because I'm trying to figure out this, how many... Because you can't, people don't understand the gravity of what you're doing today. You're not allowed to do this.
No.
And so we can't know if your colleagues are 20% loving it, 80% loving it. I don't know.
Well, I haven't taken a poll, and I don't think Victoria Police would dare take a poll either. Yeah. But you are right. The consequences of me being here today is that I will be resigning from Victoria Police effective the end of this interview.
Wow.
Because the consequences of me coming out publicly would be dismissal. So I'm choosing to quit, and I'm quitting because I can't remedy in my soul anymore the way in which my organisation that I love to work for is being used, and the damage that it's causing in the reputation of Victoria Police and the damage that it's causing to the community. My partner and I were out walking during our 2 hours of exercise on the weekend, and there were police everywhere. I live in the city. And there was just police everywhere, doing their reassurance patrols, which they're not reassurance patrols. You're not reassuring anybody in the community. You're scaring people in the community that there's that many police out in the city, trying to stop mass gatherings or what have you. And the police don't want to look you in the eye. You don't want to look the police in the eye. There's this air of uncomfortability about it all.
Is that new?
It is. It absolutely is new. I used to love doing foot patrols. I loved it. There was such a great way to connect with community. You would have parents that would bring their children up to you, and you would have those conversations so that children would be encouraged to know who they could go to when they're in trouble.
Yes. You're saying that's died down?
Absolutely.
Because are you still connected with the frontline type of stuff?
I'm connected in terms of my friends within the police force that work the front line, and the stories that they tell me, and the stories that they share privately on our union Facebook page about their experiences in dealing with the community during the pandemic, and it's really tough on them.
Okay, and do you maintain you have a rating or something to be able to go on the able to be deployed?
Also for active duty. So you have to be OST qualified, and I am OST qualified.
What's OST?
It's operational safety tactics. It's essentially where you do your firearms qualification and you do your defensive tactics training.
So have you maintained all of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I do, so I've been working, so Gender Equality and Inclusion Command is like a corporate area of the Victorian Police Force. And prior to that, I worked at Family Violence Command, I worked at Professional Standards Command, and those are corporate areas within the organisation. But throughout that entire time, I also did frontline duties. I took on frontline shifts so that I could maintain a connection to community.
Why would you do that? Because some I talked to off the record, they are running away from frontline duties and want to sit in an air-conditioned, nice little bubble.
Because if you stay in the corporate world of policing and you don't connect to the frontline policing and you see what it's like for frontline coppers and you don't see how the community responds, then how can you effectively craft policy and lead the organisation in the right direction if you don't know how the community is feeling and how the frontline police are battling to do their job?
Right.
So I think it's really important to maintain that connection. I would encourage any sworn member who is still OSC qualified that works corporately to get out and do frontline shifts. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay, so you're wandering around, you're seeing as a civilian or as an officer, the divide between the community, the trust between community and VicPol has escalated, certainly recently. Is this in any way connected to the protests and the protest response, or was it before that?
I think that it's been growing since March 2020.
The Cho directives then, the lockdowns.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, because the way in which we police now has completely changed, and a vast majority of the focus of policing is on Cho directions that are infringements on your everyday liberties and rights to just freely live in a democratic society. And I guess it's not something that any police officer, when they signed up to be a cop, ever thought that they would have to do or want to do. And that's evident in the videos. You only need to see the videos online from the various independent media where you can see the awkwardness in the conversations that police have, the shame that they have. They don't want to be enforcing these directions. They have families that are suffering under these Cho directions, and they're suffering under these Cho directions. But until these CHO directions are appropriately contested at a relevant court of law, these police are obligated to fulfil their duties and to enact those directions.
So what about the argument that they... Well, I mean, that's why you're sitting here in this studio, is that you've decided that you can't ethically continue with this kind of thing, right? What about the argument that they simply should refuse an order? What would happen to an officer who said, "No, I'm not going to arrest Zoe Bueller like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to..." Because you told me on the phone that there is an actual process in which you're supposed to do arrests like that, and it's not being followed. Like many of your procedures are being thrown out the window.
So there's different ways in which you can arrest an offender. There's no one set standard. But for example, I think the example that I gave to you was that quite often we would make appointments via the phone. So we would call the offender up and say, "Listen, you need to be interviewed and arrested for this offence. Would you like to come in on this day and we'll do the interview and whatever happens, happens." That's something that wasn't afforded to Zoe, and I wondered why, as a pregnant woman, that she couldn't have been afforded the same opportunity to make her way down to the police station to be interviewed for those offences. And I was grossly offended when I saw a pregnant woman have her hands placed behind her back and handcuffed, because to me, where was the welfare concern for her if she fell over? She had no ability to protect herself, and that disturbed me greatly.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So when we're talking about why you signed up for the police force and why others have signed up, let's talk about that. Why those values and those reasons for signing up that you're saying being challenged now. What were the reasons for signing up? What did you believe VicPol stood for?
I thought that I was joining an organisation that was, about catching the bad guys that, did the wrong thing, actual criminals that committed criminal offending that we would call high harm, high impact offending. So offences against the person ultimately was a driving factor for me, was to be somebody that could arrest people who had done the wrong thing, conduct proper investigations, prepare an excellent brief of evidence that could go to court, and to provide a victim the best opportunity for justice. We talk about having a victim-centric police force, and it's my opinion that has absolutely gone out of the window since these CHO directions have come into play, because instead of having these police officers investigating high harm, high impact offending and providing victims the opportunity to have their day in court and to receive justice, those police officers have been taken off those investigations to go and walk the streets of Melbourne to make sure that people don't gather to protest against something that is having significant impacts on their lives.
Isn't this the job of the police force, though, to enforce these rules, to keep us all safe, is what we're being told? And so, I hear the frustration from you and other active members, but at the same time, I also hear from people I've interviewed here, like Kel Glaire and Ivan Ray, saying the protests are illegal, the police should just do what they do, all the protesters are rabble, garbage humans anyway, they're all just there for a violent... Your boss said this.
And that's in part why I'm here, because I hate this divisive language that is being used, and I'm failing to see any leadership from Daniel Andrews, from his administration, from Lisa Neville or Shane Patton when we're talking about what's going on and these issues, and they are using divisive and maligning language about all protesters and calling protests illegal. I just think is ridiculous. The only reason that protests are illegal is because Daniel Andrews made it so. And I think that it was absolutely within his ability and his administration's ability to work with Victoria Police to ensure that people could still fundamentally, peacefully protest safely during a pandemic. I mean, he's been able to make exemptions and provisions in other circumstances. Brothels were allowed to stay open during the height of one of our blowout cases. Brothels we're allowed to stay open. You explain to me how you can maintain a safe distance in one of those circumstances, yet he's not been able to work with Victoria Police or anybody to say, okay, well, look, but the right to peacefully protest is a fundamental human right. Let's make sure that we still allow our citizens to do that.
And try and make it safe or something.
And try and make it safe, absolutely. And I think that we could have done that because Victoria Police in the past has had an excellent relationship with various protesting cohorts in terms of organising those protests and making sure that they occur safely. So by Daniel Andrews making protests illegal, he is responsible for the increase in violence that has occurred as a result from police and from protesters, because the police are now there to enforce a law that says, well, you're here and I have to arrest you and I have to fine you. And then you have protesters that are saying, I just want to be here, peacefully protest and say my piece about what I think of Daniel Andrews and these Cho directions, but I don't want to be arrested. I don't want to be thrown on the ground and handcuffed, and I don't want a $5,000 fine. So what are they going to do? They're going to run. They're going to run away. They're not going to want to stand there and receive that fine. And so by making it illegal, Daniel Andrews, in my opinion, has escalated the violence that is occurring and has occurred on both sides.
Quick side note, you're as a serving officer with all this beautiful authoritative uniform, you can't. Police Act says you're not allowed to talk against your boss or the government. The Constitution Act says you're not allowed to talk, and your own Victoria Police policy manuals are saying you can't do this.
Yes.
So what is going to happen to you? I know you said you're going to resign.
It's a good question. Well, I'm going to resign, and whether or not I am given my certificate of service and recognition for the 16 years of service that I've given, I guess that will be something for Victoria Police to determine, given that I have broken ranks and breached VPMs and gone against the Constitution Act by not remaining apolitical. Yes, there may be further consequences that I'm not aware of. We just have to wait and see how Victoria Police chooses to respond.
So, you're obviously aware then how heavy a decision this is. This is... I worry about you a little.
I am trying to not think about it too much because honestly, Matt, if I thought about it too much, I don't think that I would have come here and done it. I am concerned, but I feel more concerned about, where my morals sit if I didn't come out and do something and say something. And, look, I could have submitted my resignation and I could have waited my 4-week period.
Most
of
are
notice.
doing this. The other cops, they're resigning and then coming out, right?
If they are, I don't know of any that have resigned and then have come out. And I could have done it that way, but I think that the impact would have been a lot less. And I think I like my job and I like working for Victoria Police and I'm a proud police officer. In part, the reason that I wanted to do this whilst still serving and wearing the uniform today is so that the community can see that it isn't all police that are against them, and for police to see that it isn't all protesters that are coming there to fight with you. It's a minority. There's a minority on both sides, and they're the ones that are getting the attention in the media, the minority of the police that are using more force than is necessary to effect these arrests at protests or to enforce Cho directions. And we've seen that play out. And those members will be held to account. They are held to 462A of the Crimes Act. And any civilian who's been arrested can make a complaint if they feel that more force was used than is necessary.
So that's the directive under the
462A of the Crimes Act, about force not being disproportionate to the objective.
Okay.
And all police know this. It's one of the first things that you're taught at the academy.
Right.
So those police that have used more force than is necessary will be held to account. But they are the minority of police that are using excessive force, in my opinion. Conversely, I believe also that it's the minority of protesters that are going there to start fights with police. And I say that from a position of someone who lives in the city, right? And most of these protests have occurred in the city.
Yeah.
So I would choose to take my daily exercise, my hour exercise, at the time that these protests were occurring, and I would walk around the outskirts of these protests and observe.
Oh, okay.
So I would observe.
So you've seen it firsthand?
Firsthand.
Yeah.
I've seen the police line up. I've seen the protesters protesting.
You're in civilian clothes at this point?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just out walking my dogs, exercising, hoping that the police won't stop me and ask me why I'm not wearing a mask. But anyway, I go and I watch. And what I have observed is that the vast majority of these protesters are there to protest against Daniel Andrews and these Cho directions, and they're doing so peacefully. They are chanting, they're singing, they're dancing, they're calling for people to join them, and they just want to be heard. And then there are these cowards, these absolute cowards that are there to fight with police, and they hide in the protest mass with the mums and dads. They hide in the middle, and then when they reach the front of the line where the police have lined up and said, okay, you can't pass this line, those cowards, from hiding within those protest groups, they throw bricks at police faces and bottles of urine and all other types of objects, and they escalate the violence. Police have to respond to that, and as a result, police do respond and they do escalate, and then innocent protesters who haven't done anything wrong get caught up in that mayhem. And in that mayhem, those cowards run in, they coward punch cops, they kick them when they're on the ground, they break bones, they run away, and then they have the audacity to say that it was the police who initiated the violence.
I wish I prepared some footage for this. I actually have seen footage of them where there's a line and they wear like masks and they've got a little backpack on and stuff, and they're carrying things like bricks. And they hunch down and you see them run through the crowd right up to the front, smack a cop, and then run away.
Yes.
It's like they were in and gone within
Yeah.
5 seconds. Yeah.
And I've got no issues with Shane Patton, Daniel Andrews or Lisa Neville specifically identifying those people and saying that they are thugs and that they deserve to be held to account.
Yes.
But generalising that all protesters are there for one reason, and that's to bat on with the cops, is wrong. Generalising that all protesters, are just there to incite violence and aren't there to fight for your freedoms is wrong. And we need to stop generalising both camps, because we do have on one side a number of police that think all of the protesters are there to fight, and then you have on the other side a whole bunch of protesters that think that the police are just there to whack them with a stick.
Okay, so how prevalent is that? So in the attitude of the protesters, I can tell you that more than 50% believe that the police are just there to whack you and be evil, right? And you're saying that's incorrect. In the force, what's the percentage of people in your gut feel that the police think all protesters are terrible?
The percentage?
Yeah, do most people you talk to think protesters are all there for violence? Or do they believe the line coming from Shane Patton?
I don't believe so. Of the police that I've spoken to, and it's been several hundred, more than 300 police from all different areas. So country policing, Melbourne policing, specialist areas, CERT members, Port members.
Please explain what CERT and Port are for everyone.
Critical Incident Response Team, and Port is Public Order Response Team.
And they drive that tank thing that says rescue vehicle.
Yeah, I had a little laugh at that myself when I saw that in the news as well. That's one of the vehicles that they use. Certainly, I never expected to see that being rolled out to deal with protests.
What's it for then? Isn't that what it's for? Tank thing, that Bearcat?
Yeah, well, I think it's used for the purposes of the protests. I think it's been used as an intimidation tactic.
Okay. Because it has like a big gun thing on top, a big
turret. It does, yeah.
And people, you guys, excuse me, but you guys are pointing guns at us. Rubber bullet filled guns, but still, this is a new thing. I never thought I'd see.
I never thought that I would see that either, and it concerns me that we're escalating our protest response when I really believe that had Daniel Andrews allowed for it, Victoria Police could have coordinated peaceful protests and we wouldn't see the damage being done to Victoria Police reputation and the hate from the community if we'd been allowed to follow that response. But just following back up about what you were saying about, what is the police member, average police member view. As I said, of the over 300 police that I've spoken to, which in the scheme of things is not a lot when we talk about perhaps 17,000 on-sworn members, those 300 members do not believe that they should be enforcing these CHO directions in the manner that we are enforcing them. They don't want to go to protests. There's a lot of members that call in sick. They won't go to the protests because they don't want to be a part of it. And yeah, it's just very concerning to me that this is the path that we're going down and that this division is being caused. And I really mainly wanted to come on here to be a voice, hopefully of reason, to both sides. I'm sitting here as a police officer, saying to other police, don't malign all of the protesters. They're not all there to fight with you. They're struggling and their anger and their dissent is with Daniel Andrews and his administration. It's not with you. And to all of the protesters that are going to these protests, I want to tell them, the cops that are there, they don't want to fight with you. They don't want to shoot rubber bullets at you.
One or two do.
Well, yes, look, in fairness, there are police that I think do believe that the protests are unlawful and that all of these protesters should be arrested. But any member that engages in that activity is still required to justify themselves under 462A. So
is that what they're being told on the inside, though? Because I'm hearing stories of, I don't know what the right word is, but of command and higher officers like inspectors revving up the troops and telling them, you won't be held accountable. Go hard. How realistic is that, what I'm hearing?
I've heard that too from other police. I've heard a police member tell me a story that they were on a bus on the way to a protest. And
one of those driver buses full of cops.
Yes, yeah. So they were on the bus and the police officer in charge, I don't know what rank they were, got up to give them the rev speech, about what they were going to do and what was expected of them when they got there. And he said, don't worry, any and all use of force will be justified by me. And I think that if that's true, it's an incredibly dangerous and irresponsible comment to make as a supervisor, because those members will absolutely be hung out to dry if it's found that they've used more force than was necessary.
That will happen. Vic Pol won't, what he's promising won't come to pass, is what you're saying?
Absolutely not. I mean...
How can you be so certain?
Because every person who has had an interaction with police during these CHO enforcements where they've been arrested and force was used, if that person feels that it was more force than was necessary, they absolutely have a right to make that complaint to Professional Standards Command or to IBAC, and the complaint will be investigated. And I know what people say, that's police investigating police, nothing will happen. Yes. I worked at Professional Standards Command for 6 years. I can tell you with a strong degree of certainty that those matters are investigated and they are investigated properly. And if members cannot justify their actions, they are held to account.
Well, it just sounds like a misdirection and a bluff here then. If we have no evidence to say these conversations are taking place.
No.
But the reason why I want to talk about it is because I'm interested in exploring what you are taught as police at the academy and beyond in terms of self-regulation and ethics and that kind of thing. Because I think a lot of us unpoliced people, we think police just follow whatever the executive says. You're robots. But every conversation I have with you and other police, you guys are teaching me that no, you're all taught to individually have a set of standards, ethics, and that you're there to serve the law, not Shane or Dan.
We are, absolutely. But it's a mixture of both, right? Because we are a hierarchical organisation where we have a rank structure that you must obey. So the person above you is in charge, and when they give you a direction, if that direction is lawful, you must obey that direction. And then sort of sitting within that is, so if you were my supervisor and you said to me, go and arrest that man, and that direction was lawful, and I went and arrested him, that's all well and good. But it's how I choose to arrest him that is then where the responsibility is placed on me as an individual.
Right.
Do I arrest him with a significant amount of force, or do I use just the amount of force that's necessary to effect that arrest?
Because as your supervisor, I will not pay the price. If you
No.
go and smash him, you will.
No, I will, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what if a supervisor gives an order to a subordinate and it's not lawful in the subordinate's opinion? What do they do? For example, if I am told to go and handcuff a pregnant woman's hands behind her back, and I might be aware that they need to be able to stop a fall with their hands, so I'm not going to do that. Can I disobey that order?
Absolutely, but I don't think that member who did that was given a direction to go and necessarily place handcuffs on Zoe and put her hands behind her back. I think that he was just following like a standard procedure that we do normally when you go and arrest a person, and perhaps didn't have consideration or maybe knowledge that she was pregnant. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But
Well, she was screaming, "I'm pregnant." The partner was saying she's pregnant. She's going to ultrasound.
oh, okay,
Pretty
yes.
bad. But anyway, so the point is of all this little conversation
Yeah.
is that members have responsibility on this, regardless of what they're being told,
Yes, they do.
and they'll have to answer for their conduct.
They will have to answer for their conduct. So the minority that have used force will have to answer for that conduct if it's found that force was not proportionate to the objective.
And now we can extend this, of course, beyond protests. We're talking about just general show directive policing.
Yes.
Like the lady we've all seen on a sergeant, or a bit lower than you actually, when she was standing outside the shops and someone took their mask off a metre before the door, and she started to berate them and attack them, and they were trying to plead their innocence and whatever. I'm just encouraged to hear from you that there is responsibility mechanisms, accountability mechanisms that we can pursue
Yes.
once all of this is over.
Yes, there absolutely will be, and I welcome those inquiries because they're important. I think that the reason or the issue in why perhaps police are either feeling more emboldened to act the way they are in relation to these show directions is because of the messaging that comes from Dan. He's not
From Dan? You guys don't listen to Dan, you listen to Shane, right?
Well, everybody listens to Daniel Andrews. He's the Premier of our state, and he tells us what to do on a daily basis. So when you sit and you listen to his press conferences and you hear him in the way he talks about how Victoria Police will come out and act with their authority to do these things, I think that it does create that perception for some police that they're more emboldened perhaps to act the way they are.
Okay.
I've been shocked personally just witnessing, as a copper for 16 years, and I've dealt with a lot of crooks, and I've always tried to treat everybody with decency and respect regardless of who I'm dealing with, because I believe that that's my role, and it's my role is not to judge them. That's for the courts, and in this situation and in this environment with show directions, we're seeing, I feel like, a lot more judgment is coming from police right off the bat when dealing with people who aren't wearing their masks or more than 5 or 10 k's away from their home.
Isn't that a very good heuristic, though, for a police officer to say you're beyond your 5k, you're probably a bit dodgy protester. You're not wearing your mask, you're probably anti-show directive. It's a mental shortcut, right, for police? Because I've noticed that if you're walking down the street, they want to stop someone towards a protest, they'll just grab the maskless people.
Yeah, they will.
But are you saying that kind of discrimination's not the right thing to do? I mean, it seems
I think
convenient thing to do.
It does seem the convenient thing to do, but I think perhaps I don't know if you sort of paralleled it against the the conversations and the inquiries that we had in relation to profiling, racial profiling, and the way in which police were responding to crime in certain areas, and certain people in the community felt that they were being targeted
because of race, colour
and skin colour.
Yeah.
And what that was well, perhaps that was the easy way out for police at that time. Oh, we're looking for people of this colour, this age, and this ethnicity. Oh, that person there fits that description. We'll go talk to them, and we'll go and see what they're doing.
You're saying that's not good? That was wrong.
Racial profiling.
Yeah.
Racial profiling.
Well, it seems
is very
obvious,
wrong.
right? Okay, so racial profiling is wrong.
Yes.
So the profiling that we're doing now because of COVID, I'm wondering if that's equally problematic.
I think it is. But I think that also police are in a very difficult position in terms of trying to do what they're told and enforce these directions and maintain a balance of human rights.
Okay. Can I ask this question? In your opinion, who's the problem here? I get the sense you're putting the blame on Dan Andrews primarily.
I am, yes.
Okay. How much should we think about Shane Patton and the command structure in Victoria Police, though? Because surely they could be pushing back. I'd love to hear what the messaging you're hearing within the organisation, what are members hearing? You just talked about the tone coming from Dan, perhaps inciting a tougher police response. Are you getting that same messaging from the command structure?
No, I don't think so. I think that the command structure has, from the start, they talked about, blatant disregards for show directions, and that's what we should enforce, and that, everything else around that should be around education to members of the community about the show directions, and, to be reasonable and fair and tolerant.
Oh, sounds great.
I think that changed. I'm not sure how long ago, but it has changed, because it is now, all the narrative is that it's illegal protests, it's illegal gatherings. How dare people go out onto the beach and watch a sunset? That's illegal.
Wow.
So the narrative has certainly changed, I think, in terms of proportionality, I think. But I can't say that Shane Patton or anyone in his command, to my knowledge, has come out and said any of these insightful things on buses to police members.
Yes.
And I absolutely think that Shane would come out and condemn any inappropriate, disproportionate use of force.
Okay.
Of what I know of him, I think that absolutely he would condemn that.
Okay.
I just don't know. I don't know how closely tied Shane Patton is to Dan Andrews, and how that relationship works in terms of there being a separation of government and police.
It seems to be breaking down.
And it really does seem to be that relationship has become more close and more comfortable than the community should be happy with. I think that there's supposed to be that separation.
And attention. I would like to see attention. I liked it when Dan Andrews said we need to have a curfew by 1 p.m. or what, I can't remember what it was, and then Shane Patton said, I'm sorry, we can't.
Yes.
We can't put up a ring of steel.
Yeah, and pushed back, yeah.
Yeah, and for whatever reasons, operational reasons, but we shouldn't see them as a political arm of the government. I put it to Kel Glairson, the former Chief Commissioner. I said, people are seeing VicPol as an extended arm, a political arm of the Andrews government.
Yeah.
And to my shock, he said, yes, I think that's correct, they are.
I agree with him, and that is also in part why I'm here today, because as a police officer, I must remain apolitical. Every police officer has to remain apolitical, and I just felt that it's absolutely impossible for me to have such strong convictions and feelings and opinions about what the Daniel Andrews administration is doing to the Victorian community and not being able to say that. And not just not being able to say that as a police officer, but our own police force has instituted recently a new policy that says that you can't even have that opinion in your private life on social media or in public discourse. You can't like a politician's Facebook page. You can't like their comments. You can't follow them on Twitter.
I didn't know they were cracking down on your political freedoms as a civilian.
Yes, so they've got policy that is infringing on our private lives to be politically engaged. And I think it's quite funny actually, because I'll tell you a funny story. In March 2020, when all of this first came out, and Daniel Andrews announced his mask mandate, I completely freaked out. I have a medical exemption in relation to childhood trauma around having my mouth covered. So when that mandate came out, it completely triggered in me all of those experiences, feelings, and fears. And I just thought, I don't know how I'm going to cope. I'm a police officer, and also I'm trying to be a civilian. How am I going to survive this? And so I got onto my Facebook page, which is private. It didn't have my real name on it, and it didn't have a picture of me. And I wrote, "Fuck you, Dan." And that's what I posted. I was angry.
Probably
and
what you just said. Yeah, go on.
And that's what I posted. And I got reprimanded for it. I got into trouble.
They knew
work.
it was you. Okay.
Well, I had police officer friends who obviously, snitched on me, and I got reprimanded
That's what cops
for that.
do.
So as a result of that, I actually reached out to Professional Standards Command. I know many members there, as I worked there for a long time, and I explained my situation. I said, "Hey, listen, I'm really concerned about what's happening in the political landscape, and I want to be more politically involved. I want to, identify some politics that I align to, and I want to attend those meetings, and I want to talk about politics, and I want to call out political issues when things are wrong."
Or even just say "F you, Dan." That's basic.
Yeah, can you tell me? Can you help me work out how I can do that through our current policy? Because at the time, the policy didn't have anything in there about not being able to talk privately on your Facebook page or anything like that. And I got the email. "Oh yeah, thank you for inquiry. We'll get back to you." Well, getting back to me was 6 months later. They changed the policy.
Oh, okay.
That said, "Wouldn't you just know you can't do it?"
So you were trying to actively cooperate and try and do it well. This is interesting to me because I've personally raised these issues we're talking about, disgruntled members who are struggling. I've personally raised it with Shane Patton twice.
Okay. What did he say?
Two replies. Well, I don't think that's fair to just blow all of that out on camera. But suffice to say, in summary, he and his office seem completely disinterested in reaching out or working with the community. I am not like those other platforms. I am interested in what you're interested in, which is healing the divide between police and community.
Yes.
Which is why I work with people like the Community Advocacy Alliance, Kel Glare and Ivan Ray, who are hardcore anti-protester type people.
Yep.
I disagree with them on that, but I want to see the healing. And I've offered Shane Patton and anyone who wants to, I'll push the message. I've talked to the media unit as well and said, "Look, do you want to put a message out? I will facilitate it on this platform because I think we should hear from the police line." And the responses I get back are so dismissive that the protesters are a bunch of...
Yeah. It's
That's
just that
alarming,
generalisation.
because they're not even wanting to try.
Yep. And then that concerns me as well, because do they genuinely believe that? Do they genuinely believe that all of these protesters are just there to fight with police and that they're not there to actually have their say? I would challenge Daniel Andrews to work with Shane Patton to develop a policy that allows for people to peacefully and safely protest during a pandemic.
And he would say no, he will never do this.
I challenge him to do that, because if Daniel Andrews is as popular as he thinks he is, then everybody who supports Daniel Andrews can also come out and protest in favour of him. And Victoria Police can facilitate both sides. And let's see where the numbers fall.
I suspect it's an illusion right now. I think we know what's going to happen there. Okay. Yeah, look, I'm concerned beyond just protesting, just community policing, because when Shane Patton rose to power, the talk coming out of his office was that he wants to have more cops on the road, more on the blocks. You've heard all this being on the inside.
Back to basics, policing, which was fantastic.
It was.
Yeah.
And we certainly are back to basics of shooting people in the back as they run around a corner block. I've seen footage of in the CBD. That is a joke. Okay, Krystle, this is good fun. I'm trying not to make too light of the situation because what you're doing is so serious, but When I earlier described your uniform as beautiful, there is, because you came here in civilian clothes,
I did.
and to me you were just a person, and I was like, oh, there's nothing particular. You're just a human being. Then when you got changed and put in uniform, there is an authority and a regality, and it's you got these beautiful crests and things. I'm wondering what this is going to represent to the people moving forward. How are we going to be seeing this as a community, and what's next? I'm not sure where Shane Patton goes from here.
I hope that Shane Patton opens dialogue with the sectors of the community that want to protest, and I hope that he opens dialogue with the...
Well, beyond protest, though. Let's go beyond that, because not many people protest. 10
well,
grand,
they
15
don't
grand.
Because they're scared. They're terrified to hit the streets.
But there's a lot more people sitting at home not happy with the political situation.
Absolutely.
And who are now a bit more scared of meeting police. Can he even do that? Could he kind of reach out to the community? Is that in his purview? Or does he have to maintain tough guy stance per Dan's instructions?
No, I think that for Shane Patton, having a good working relationship with the community is paramount. I do believe that. I don't know whether or not he's just been swept up in all of the Cho directions and the current enforcement, and so he hasn't had the time to sit and consider the damage that our enforcements of the Cho directions are causing. If we look back to, I think it was 1994, the Tasty nightclub incident.
What was that? Because you put that in a message to me, and I was like, what happened there?
So there was, I think it was 463 people were arrested and strip searched who were of the LGBTIQ community. And it was wrong. It was completely unacceptable what occurred that day.
Why were they strip searched? Is it because it was a drug what was the reason?
I think it was at a time where it was at a height of dissent in relation to gay people being open in the community, and it was definitely seen as a homophobic act.
Because it was targeting the gay community.
It was targeting the gay community. This nightclub, I think, was a nightclub where LGBTIQ people frequented, and that those people that were arrested and strip searched were of that community.
Under the guise of you carrying drugs or something.
Something
right.
ridiculous.
Okay.
The point is that act alone, that single act alone, caused so much damage to Victoria Police and the trust that the LGBTIQ community has with us, right? It took 20 years for Victoria Police to apologise.
20 years?
For that.
That's a number of commissioners later.
It is. So then we look at the Cho directions that we're enforcing now and the harm that that's causing the community and the reputational damage that that's causing.
That's bigger than
to
Tasty.
6 million? 6 million? No,
yeah,
more.
Like that. Yeah.
Millions. Every single Victorian is suffering as a result of these Cho directions. Imagine the magnitude of the damage that this is causing. That was one incident, and we paid for it and worked with that community solidly thereafter to try and rebuild relationships within the LGBTIQ community. How long is it going to take Victoria Police to rebuild that trust with the community?
20 years.
Once these Cho directions go away.
Well, I look forward to the Chief Commissioner coming on the show in 2041 to make that apology to the community. All right, so you represent a large number of police, something like 200 or 300, who are also similarly concerned about what's going on. Can you tell me about that group, what you're doing, why you're doing it?
Yeah, sure. So about a month or so ago, our union, or my ex-union, I resigned from my union a few days ago, so that's the Police Association of Victoria. They released on their Facebook page, it's a private Facebook page just for police members, they released a statement at about 7 o'clock at night, and they said that should Shane Patton or should Victoria Police institute a vaccine mandate, that they would support that mandate. The post itself has had the most traction and the most amount of comments of anything that they've ever posted.
Positive or negative or neutral?
A mixture of both. Okay. It was entirely... It caught me by surprise, the divisiveness. There were police on there celebrating it, saying, I don't want to work with anybody that's not vaccinated. There were police saying, good, if you don't get the jab, you should get fired. And there was a lot of hurtful, hateful, divisive comments by people of that persuasion. And then there was a whole bunch of other police that were saying, well, hang on a second, you know, people have every right to have vaccine hesitancy, and here's all of these different reasons why, you know, I don't want to take this vaccine right now. And they were just getting ignored. There was repeated requests on the page to get answers from TPAV. TPAV, you said that you sought legal advice and that's why you've come to this decision. What was that legal advice? They didn't tell us. So I'm sitting there watching this unfold on this page, and I'm thinking, geez, this is pretty big news. And then I started to message privately a couple of the members from within the group, and we started to form a small support group because we thought, you know what, we need to lean on each other now, because if this mandate comes in, what are we going to do?
As in, these members didn't want to take the vaccine or didn't want to take it yet?
They didn't want to be mandated. So
some of them are fine with it?
Yes, so there's a number of different reasons why, but for example, some want to wait for further studies, some want to wait for a different vaccine.
There's a lot of people waiting for the Novavax or the Covax at the end of this year.
That's the one, Covax. So a lot of these members were saying, look, I'd rather wait for Covax and see how that one plays out. I'm not particularly minded to these two. Lots of different reasons. Some people just don't want it to be a mandate, a condition of their employment. The point was that we got together privately and we started to sort of coordinate and reach out to police members that we knew didn't want these mandates to come in. And that was all done very privately, and the group grew quite quickly. And we wrote a letter to the union, signed by 110 of us at the time. So at that point in time, there was 110 members who signed this letter to our union, telling them that we were really disappointed in their post. We were disappointed that they didn't moderate it, and that we wanted assurances from them that they would support members who didn't want to be vaccinated, and that they would support them through any industrial relations issues that might arise out of that.
Like other unions are doing, can I add? Some are not, but there are some that are coming out. I saw yesterday. There's the Meat Workers Union, but there's also another one, AMU or AW, that are saying it's only a very small percentage of our union base that doesn't want to take this vaccine right now or not yet or ever. But we're still going to stand for that 10, 20%. And that is their job, stand for them all.
And that's what we wanted from our union. And we didn't get a response. Wayne Gatt has my personal number. We've spoken on many occasions before in relation to enterprise bargaining issues from a few years ago.
Wayne Gatt being the head of the police union.
Yes. And he could have called me when that letter got sent. He could have had a discussion with me, and he didn't. We reached out again and we said, hey, listen, we've got another private Zoom tonight and the members are waiting for an answer. And I got nothing. It was crickets. There was no response. And, you know, so as a result, one of the members within the executive of our support group reached out to Jack Maguire, who runs... He runs Red Union. So they're an affiliate group that run a number of different unions that are, I guess, operated by industrial relations lawyers. Okay. But they didn't operate here in Victoria. Yep. And he has, so Red Union has a union, I think it's called SOPA or SOPA, however you want to pronounce it, and it's for sworn officers. Right. So we linked in with Jack. We heard what he had to say about what he would be prepared to do and how their union would support us. And so over 100 members have quit TPAV and have jumped over to Red Union.
Oh, wow.
And I expect that number will rise because our union, you know, they just weren't forthcoming with information to come out and solidly assure us that they would look after members if any disciplinary action happened to them as a result of not taking the vaccine.
So there is an alternative union potentially right
now. It exists. It's up and running, and
members you can choose your union. Obviously,
you can.
I'm not familiar with this. And do you have to be in a union as a police officer?
You don't have to, but you can operate in two. So I was a TPAV member and a Red Union member up until a few days ago when I read. So TPAV released what they call an in-brief, which is like an automatic dissemination of information to its members. Yep. So TPAV released that recently, and it was a response, I suppose, to the mandates that are in. And I just thought it was watery, I thought it was weak, and I thought that it was disrespectful to the 110 members who had sought direct contact. Because, as you said, it's a minority group, right, of people who were opposed to vaccine mandates. So he could have reached out to us much earlier than going through a generalised, weak and watery in brief, in my opinion. And really that's what caused me to cross the line and go, I don't need to be a member of both. I'm leaving TPAV.
To the Red Union.
To go to the Red Union. Having said that, after today, it'll be a moot point being a member of any union.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you can't be a part of them.
As I won't be a police officer after the end of this interview.
Are most police officers part of the union?
Yes. I think 98% of police are a member of a union.
Okay.
It's very strong.
Well, it doesn't sound... Wayne Gadd has not been very good. I mean, I like the fact that he came out against the playgrounds thing. Said, look, we don't want our members to be finding kids or whatever. However, he sounds pretty average if I'm... Just from my own perspective. He doesn't seem to be standing up for much. But at least he's not as bad as John Setka. John Setka comes out and calls his own union members neo-Nazis. And,
it was disgraceful.
Yeah. And then Bill Shorten, who I voted for twice... and invited on the show, comes out and calls them neo-Nazi man-babies. Yeah. Okay, what else do we need to talk about? So
I wanted to just talk a little bit more about the group that was started. So as a result of the union ultimately creating this situation, we now have this very strong group of current sworn police and PSOs ranging from senior sergeants down to just graduated from the academy, who are wanting to fight these mandates. And this isn't a position of not wanting to take a vaccine. This is a position of not wanting the vaccine to be a condition of your employment. And we think that fundamentally that is wrong at law. And we are working with some senior QCs and industrial relations lawyers to mount a case in the federal court to argue against these mandates. And that is on behalf of all authorised workers. So initially we thought, as the group, that we would do this just as a police group and it would be private. I wouldn't come out publicly and say anything. No one else would. We would try and really sort of just deal with it in-house and follow the letter of the law. And that was when we thought it was going to be a mandate by our chief.
Yes.
When Daniel Andrews came out and said all authorised workers, we thought this is actually a really great opportunity to try and bridge some of that divide between the community and police. Right. If we as a collective can be organised and we can create this group and put a legal team together to take this fight to the federal court on behalf of all authorised workers in Victoria, then hopefully that shows the community that we are on their side in one small way, because we're fighting with them and alongside them, that mandates should not be, a vaccine mandate should not be a condition of your employment.
I'm concerned if this mandate gets up, that what's next?
Absolutely.
Medical or not medical. I'm just seeing an encroachment of executive power into our lives. And you've told me that there are a number of people in your group that are happy to get vaccinated or already are.
Yes.
I'm one of those people that if I do end up getting, say, the Covax or whatever, I will be standing outside with the unvaccinated, not allowed inside the restaurant, having those picnics. Have you seen?
Yes, I have.
Yeah?
Yes.
Because I just think it's, regardless of my medical choices, it's ethically wrong to segregate society this way. I mean, if this was Ebola, okay, we can talk.
It's a very different story, isn't it?
Anyway, okay, so... Is there any more you wanted to say about that? Because I want to ask you more questions about the police. Sure.
Well, I just wanted, on the mandates themselves, obviously you're aware about the Fair Work Commission case that occurred for...
They ruled in favour of the mandates, right? But there was a dissenting opinion.
So it was about the flu vaccination and
We never used to shame... Just pointing out, sorry, we never used to shame people for not getting that.
No. But so that case was about a flu vaccine, and the matter that was at the Fair Work Commission was for this person to appeal the decision that her dismissal was fair and reasonable.
Because she was dismissed because she wouldn't get the flu
Because she wouldn't get the flu vaccine. Okay. So the three people that sat on that judgment, two of them sided with the original decision and said that the case could be upheld. And the dissenting opinion was that of Deputy President Dean, who is the only person in the Fair Work Commission who has come out with authority and made a statement about where COVID-19 vaccine mandates sit within the community. And she was absolutely against them being mandated by employers or being mandated by the government.
Her articles is available online. We'll put the link in the
That would
to
be
this.
great. I would encourage everybody to read her dissenting opinion.
Why?
Because
I found it very interesting, but
it just, everything that she said is so on point and is
talking about the rule of law and
about the rule of law,
rights.
human rights, the right to bodily integrity, freedom of choice without coercion. She talks about everything that we have seen being discussed in, all of these different chat groups on the internet, and the mainstream media going, that's just a conspiracy theorist, and that's just conspiracy talking. And she puts it into this beautifully eloquent form and says, these aren't conspiracy theories, these are facts. And she goes through the facts. And it's just a fantastically well-written dissenting view, because I think I wrote it down and I just wanted to refer to it.
Sure.
She said that she had never more strenuously disagreed with an outcome of an unfair dismissal application.
That's strong wording.
It is. She also said that Safe Work Australia had publicly come out and said that most employees, or employers I should say, will not have to make vaccinations mandatory to meet their health and safety requirements.
Okay.
Right?
Wow.
So why does Dan Andrews think any differently?
Because she's in the minority. That's why. He's got 2/3.
Yes. Well, this is true, but that doesn't make it right.
This is why we are doing a town hall on. I'll do a quick plug if you don't mind for our show. We do these private town halls online. We do them live in real life and online, but we're doing a talk on ethics because I think this is really missing. And I love that theme of this interview where we've talked a lot about ethics because people talk about what's right. Do the right thing, Dan says all the time.
Yeah.
And you are charged, Victoria Police, with making sure that people do the right thing and not the wrong thing. But when does right? When is it right because the government said so? And when does it stop and say there's a higher authority? There's your personal sense of ethics here, not just what the government says is okay. Sorry, I cut you off. Did you want to read more of?
Oh, no, I did. Yeah, there was just a few other points that I'd wanted to make, but
Sure.
I can make them.
Hit me up.
Okay.
This is not Channel 10. We've got plenty of time.
Well, so you've just given your plug. I wanted to give my plug about the case that we are mounting in the federal court.
Plug away.
So if you could post the link to policeforfreedom.org in this interview, I would encourage authorised workers and police and anybody who's interested in our case to go to policeforfreedom.org and they can find out more information about that. And there'll be a GoFundMe page there because obviously to launch that action costs money. We've already raised, I think, $12,000 and a lot of that is just from the police alone because we haven't shared it quite widely.
So this will be the first time. I know the QC that you mentioned earlier, which we won't name for now.
Yes.
Top notch. Top notch. Because a lot of these campaigns who are trying to mount cases and collect funds, I see the lawyers and I'm like, not sure about that one.
Yeah.
But this one is absolutely famous when this all comes out. He's fantastic.
And we were approached, like as the founder of the group, I was approached by lots of different law firms. And
did you reject them?
Well, I really wanted to ensure that we were going to take on people that had a balanced and moderate view and that were able to adequately advocate this issue in court appropriately, fairly, rationally and without emotion because I think that's what is required.
Well, you've got it. You've got one of the most famous in the state. So apparently, Control Room is telling me your GoFundMe is... What did you say it's at?
I thought it was at 12,000.
Oh, okay, it's at 15.
Ah, that's fantastic. Well, obviously it's still getting out there.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I wanted to say was that this was one of Deputy Dean's remarks within her dissenting view, and I absolutely love it. And I think that anybody who is in opposition to this statement is on the wrong side of history. And her statement was that all Australians should vigorously oppose the introduction of a system of medical apartheid and segregation.
She used that word because I've been using those words and people saying I'm crazy.
No, she used those words. This is quoted from her dissenting opinion. And she said it is an abhorrent concept and is morally and ethically wrong and is the antithesis of our democratic way of life and everything we value. I just think anybody that can look at this situation that we're in rationally and sit on the other side, I'm telling you now, they're on the wrong side of history.
That's true, but the problem is cycles of history take time. And if you look around the world, people are saying this about Australia, you guys are crazy. But here in Australia, we're in a little bubble.
Yeah.
And we could be here for another few years. So we have to basically...
When's our next election?
Okay, November 22, so it's a year and a bit.
We have a year and a bit of suffering, but...
But in terms of the public mood against the wrong side of history, it could take a while before... If you look at what happened in history, I won't start to name... I think we all know which decade I'm referring to in the 40s. But it takes time for people to go, oh my God, what did I just do? I regret it.
But that's what frustrates me, right? Because we've got history to warn us about these things, and we are literally living a moment in time in history where we shouldn't need to have anybody reflect on this in years to come and go, oh, I should have acted differently. You should know better right now. Every single one of us should know better right now that this is wrong, and the way that we are responding to this pandemic, it's not proportionate in this country. It's not proportionate in this state. And you shouldn't need years to reflect on that to then come around and go, oh, yeah, we could have responded to that better.
Well, the Victoria Police also is not being proportionate, and that too, I think, will be reflected on poorly.
I think so too.
Can I ask you about... I'm just trying to ask everything I can while I've got a Victoria Police. I don't think I'll ever have Victoria Police ever in here again, except to raid me and arrest me. I am wondering if other members are going back to their training when they learnt the self mnemonic, and whether they are considering their own positions. Because I put out a little posting the other day, which seems to have taken off, where I'm very sorry to you and to others for calling you cowards.
I read that. I read that post, and it did hurt my feelings a little bit, I've got to be honest. But you're free to say it, and I think that, there was elements of truth to it.
I found it very difficult to write because there are good cops, bad cops, as we've been talking about, and it's the good cops that message me and say, I'm ethically torn about this.
Yep.
And so I attacked them and wrote a post saying, of all people, it's not Shane Patton who's a coward, it's not the other cops who are happy smashing Victorians, it's you, because you are ethically torn and you're not doing anything about it. So can you tell me a bit about that self-mnemonic, and can you tell me a bit about your journey through your ethical struggle? I know we covered a little bit at the beginning, but really I'm wondering if this interview will help some of the others, not necessarily to resign, not necessarily to do what you're doing, but to just, as I said in that post, stop sitting on the fence, stop being torn within yourself ethically. Like, you need to reconcile within yourself who you're going to be as a human being. Yeah.
It is difficult though, and Matt, what I would say is you don't want those members who are having a struggle of moral conscience to quit. Yeah. Do you want the only police on the street to be the ones that think...
Everyone says this to me, you're going to get rid of all the cops, but I'm not asking them to quit. I'm encouraging people to find what their ethics and their morals are and to stick to them.
And
you can't tell me that's a bad...
No, but they are, Matt. I mean, the ones that are struggling morally, they're the ones that are not turning up to work when they've been asked to protest. They're the ones that are looking the other way when they see someone walking down the street not wearing a mask.
Good point.
They're the ones that are pulling cars over and spending 10, 20, 30 minutes talking to a driver that has a breakdown because they've lost their job and they've got nothing left. Oh, okay. And they're not giving them a ticket, they're giving them a warning. these cops are doing everything that they can behind the scenes.
There's a lot of those, you reckon?
There are a lot of those cops, and you won't see that
Of course we won't, no.
in the community.
Okay, so I guess I'm only talking about the ones that are contacting me saying, what do I do, Matt?
Yeah, I guess,
They obviously know what they need to do. Why are they contacting me saying, I want to quit, but I can't? It's sending me 3 emails. I'm like, well, what do you want from me?
Yeah. I think that those people are probably where I was several weeks ago, which is that real struggle of moral conscience of, I don't want to be doing this job anymore, but I don't want to quit and I don't want to give up my career. I had all of these career aspirations before coming here today, and all of those go out the window now. I think that maybe those police are thinking the same thing.
What did you want to do? You want to come up and be a inspector?
So in my mind, my journey with Victoria Police was that this would be my entire career. I would stay with VicPol.
You started in your early 20s.
I did. Yeah. I was fresh-faced recruit at 22, and I envisaged that in my career I would retire as an inspector, Inspector Mitchell. That's what I was hoping for.
Which is one rank above Senior Sergeant.
It is, but I'm not a Senior Sergeant.
Acting, yeah.
I'm an acting Senior Sergeant. So, there's a whole process to actually get that promotion.
Yeah. Why Inspector? Why not retire a little bit higher than that? Because a lot of people retire as inspectors.
Yes.
Like Ivan Ray did. Yeah. I don't understand.
I think that I have a lot of inspector friends, and I have friends that are above that rank, and that's a really good place to sit from a position of influence above and below. Oh. It still maintains connection to the troops in varying degrees. But my 5-year plan, up until a month ago, was to become a senior sergeant and then become a senior sergeant in charge of a police station. I had this mind map and wall of ideas of what I wanted to do and what type of culture I would have in my police station, the type of police that I'd want to attract to work for me, and that I'd be this inclusive, diverse workplace that people just loved to stay at, that promoted people to go out and diversify and get experience and then come back, encourage great sergeant leaders to come and work for me and to be, these leaders for the young people, to have all of these constables come from the academy and just go, this is the station that I want to work at.
Like Senior Sergeant Croydon from Blue Heelers.
Yes. Well, yeah, maybe, but that was sort of my next ambition. Was I would love to be able to run my own police station and direct a culture that would just be a fantastic place to work. Okay. And that's not going to happen now.
No, I don't think so.
Well, it's not. I'm resigning. I have my resignation papers with me to go and give to my boss, very regretfully. As I said, I love where I work and I love what I do right now. I don't want to talk about it too much because it might make me teary. I know what I'm giving up, and I regret giving that up. But
you seem at peace though at it, like you're not.
I'm at peace now. Anymore. I was a wreck. I cried. I was torn. I just felt so torn up inside about what I wanted to do. But I just felt that what's happening is bigger than my career. Yeah. And not standing up and being a voice and speaking out, because there is no one to do it. You're not allowed to do it as a police officer. The only way you can do that is to make the sacrifice, to quit, so that you can go public. And I'm not asking or expecting other police officers to do that, but what I do hope is that I can continue to be a voice for those police, and hopefully continue to bridge some of that divide and gap between community and police. And that would be my greatest desire, to see the damage that's been caused repaired, and repaired quickly. And if I do that as a civilian, then I do that as a civilian. But I just on reflection, I probably need to get onto LinkedIn and update my resume.
You need a new job.
Well, I'll be unemployed, so yes.
Wow.
Don't know. Hopefully, LinkedIn will help me out. Just stick a resume on there. See how we go.
I love the fact that you've come out in this side of it. Like it really, it says a lot about your character. You didn't have to do this. Like, you could have come out afterwards And so for us, it's a very big honour that you would choose here to say that. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
But I don't want to close it yet because I want to learn about this self-mnemonic.
Oh, yes. Sorry,
So-
we were talking about that.
Because I just
Yes.
want the police to just remember their training.
Yes. So the old self-test, I mean, it's something that you learn before you even join the police force. It's something that's given to you as an applicant to consider, and you might even be questioned about the self-test in your interview, and so the self-test is really about a decision-making framework. So whenever you need to make a decision about something, consider the self-test. And I would ask, while I talk about the self-test, I would ask for Daniel Andrews to consider the self-test.
All of us should learn the self-test.
We should.
Ethics.
We
Love it.
should. But I would like the self-test to be applied to Daniel Andrews and the CHO directions.
Let's try it now. A couple of minutes.
Will your decision withstand scrutiny?
Scrutiny. By who are they talking about?
So when they talk about scrutiny, they talk about will your decision withstand scrutiny by Victoria Police,
Yeah.
by the community,
Okay.
and by your colleagues and
Okay.
friends and family. So,
like
assessing all of those different avenues.
Yeah, scrutiny.
Sorry, my foot's gone to sleep.
Oh,
Just
move
got
around,
to give
move
it a bit of a tap.
I was hoping you'd bring a gun. I wanted to see all the batons and the OC spray and the guns and all that.
No, that's all kept back at the station.
And the hats. You don't wear the hats anymore.
Not the broad brims, no.
They look so regal.
The smaller ones with the
I don't know. The ones with the big
police
crest
badge.
thing on the.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I'm enamored by the whole the whole system. Do you have a badge, a police badge?
Yes,
Do you have it on you?
it's in my bag.
Right. Well, show me afterwards. That's all.
Okay. I've got to hand it in today, so.
I know. I'd just love to see it and photocopy it. No,
No,
I didn't say that.
no, well, you won't be photocopying it. That's not allowed.
Okay. So scrutiny.
Yes. Is your decision ethical?
Ethical.
So
So
then,
this is the big question that I'm asking
Yes.
on our show. How do you know what's ethical? Dan says that it's ethical.
yes. Well, I
Trigger.
think to determine whether or not something is ethical, it requires a contest of ideas, doesn't it?
So Victoria Police are teaching this.
Yes.
Is your decision ethical?
Yes. Absolutely. It's part of the decision-making process.
Was it ethical to shoot him in the back with a rubber bullet? Okay, yep. What's next? L.
Next, L, lawful. Is what you are doing lawful?
Moot point, because everyone just says everything that Dan says is lawful, so done.
Yes, but the point is that, where people say, what's happening is unlawful, and until there's a rational contest of what is determined to be lawful at the appropriate court of law, for the time being, we have to accept that
It's all lawful, yeah.
what is happening is lawful
get
in
it.
relation to those CHO directions.
I get it.
The last one is about, is your decision fair?
Ooh.
And what I like about, the last one on fairness is it talks about a number of different things in terms of, assessing the fairness of your decision. But the last thing that fairness talks about is human rights. And it talks about the limitations on human rights, that they should be reasonable, justified, and as least restrictive as possible. That's what the self-test teaches us. That's what
Every police officer.
every police officer. That is the decision-making, part of a decision-making framework that we use
To consider human rights.
to consider human rights.
Proportionality, yeah.
Proportionality. Is it reasonable? Is it justified? And is it as least restrictive as possible? And that's what I would want to ask Daniel Andrews.
Oh, boy.
Have you done the self-test, mate?
Right, scrutiny. No, definitely not, because he just doesn't allow it.
No.
What's the other one? E. Ethical.
Ethical?
I mean, that's an argument. I wish we
It
could have
is.
that argument. Lawful. Assume that it is, except it abridges a lot of human rights charters and stuff.
Well, I don't want to assume that the CHO directions are lawful.
Oh, really?
Absolutely not. I want those to be challenged in a federal court, in the High Court if need be. But I think that this is unprecedented power that is being used under the Public Health and Wellbeing Act, and it deserves a proper contest in a proper court
I agree. Yeah, okay.
for a decision. So until that happens, we act from the premise that they are lawful because
Right.
we're bound to do so.
Right.
But is it lawful? Well, I reserve judgment until such times as we have an appropriate court jurisdiction tell us that it is.
Okay. And then fair and human rights.
Yeah.
I don't think the way we're treating the poorer members of our community is fair at all. Did you see the Bass Hill Plaza? You don't know Sydney, do you?
That footage of that man on
having
the
a heart attack. Having a heart attack with cuffs around his back. On the same day in Bondi, I think it was the next day, Hazard comes out and says, no, it's fine that they're not wearing a mask and they're on the beaches. Outdoors is the safest place. I've lived in Sydney from the poorest areas and gone to school around Bankstown and Bass Hill Plaza.
Yep.
And then Vaucluse, the richest areas. 100%. All right. I don't know if you checked in when you came. Did you check in? You should check in. Maybe the people at home would like to check in. You should see where this goes. It goes to a lovely website. If I'm out and about, you'll have to watch the video and see where I just sent everyone. Krystle. Gotcha. I'm going to report you. Don't look at the photo. It's actually me. Now, I want to ask you, this badge, thank you for letting me see it.
Sure. That's my recruit photo, by the way. It's my
You look really young.
graduation. I was.
I'll put the photocopy in the link below if anyone wants to see it. What is the deal with free Maccas and stuff? I've heard stories that you can go and flash this badge and get free everything. Transport.
So no, the Victoria Police position is that that's a gift and benefit that you are not allowed to take.
It's a bribe type thing, yeah.
Yes. So I think...
it was in the past though, right?
Oh, absolutely. So, and I think also McDonald's will still do it if police do show their badge, but I don't think that they're allowed to do... Well, I don't think
You just got to walk in
I know.
uniform and then they'll be like, here, do you want some free Big Macs?
Well, they give you half price. That's if you go in uniform and you don't ask for it, but they might still give it. Because McDonald's position is, Victoria Police, you can't tell us who we will and won't give.
That's right. They could give it to me.
They could.
Yeah.
But the official position is that you shouldn't ask for it.
But you're allowed to accept it.
I don't think that you're allowed to accept it, but I would say that it's still done fairly commonly. I know when I was a recruit, and was on my minimum recruit wage, I certainly enjoyed my half price Maccas any opportunity that I could get.
Where else? What about Krispy Kreme? Because donuts, cops.
I don't know. I hate Krispy Kreme donuts. Sorry,
Oh, really?
Yes, I've never tried.
This whole thing is not good for your health as cops.
No,
You're out late, random shift work, and you're eating Maccas.
but it's the only thing really that's open. I mean, look,
Kebab shops.
Oh yeah, the dirty kebab.
Not dirty kebab. The Holy Trinity: garlic, chili, and barbecue sauce.
Oh, that's really unfair to your partner in the car. Could you imagine eating one of those?
No, you get them to eat it as well.
And then it's just a big fart fest in the divvy van.
No, just garlic. So, hey, what else can you get on this? Can you get? We're talking about it like it's a free ticket to do stuff.
So we can ride public transport for free with our Freddies.
Yeah, but even when you're not on duty?
Yes. Yeah. There is an expectation, and I've certainly had to act with authority whilst off duty. So there's an expectation that if you are riding public transport and you're doing so for free, that any issues that occur,
you'll respond.
You'll respond to that and you will assist. And members do step up and they will do that. But there's also some that won't because it's just not safe at the time.
Is this why we're seeing playing? In the protests, there's like a line of cops, and then there's one girl in like activewear with a gun around her hip. And I'm like, what's going on there?
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. Maybe they were like at the last minute, quick, put a belt on, help us out.
Well, she's probably a detective.
No, she's young.
And that doesn't mean she can't be a detective.
No. She's like 22, like really young.
That doesn't mean she can't be a detective.
What? We've got 22-year-olds investigating stuff.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Having a detective designation just means that you work at a particular criminal intelligence unit or some other unit that conducts...
I've watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I know that you need to get to a certain number of years and then you go for the detective exam.
Oh, okay. Is that how it works?
Yeah. Okay, that's how it works. All right. I guess you're going to miss all this, right? It's a whole way of life. Free Maccas.
Oh, well, look, it's not the Maccas that I care about, I've got to be honest. It's a career. It's an entire life. I grew up as a ward of the state and I lived in foster homes.
Yeah.
And I ran away at 16 and
wow.
I've been homeless. And at any point in my life between the ages of 16 to when I joined Victoria Police, I could have ended up on the wrong side of the tracks.
Wow. So Victoria Police really has a lot of your loyalty. I know you're quitting and you're coming out against them, but they were like your surrogates.
That's I think probably one of the main reasons why there was such a battle for me to do this, because the loyalty for me is that this job has been the single constant safe thing in my life ever. This job, and I'm giving that away. I'm throwing it away. But I'm not throwing it away carelessly. It's for an important cause. I hope it stands for something. I really do, because I am going to miss my job and my co-workers, and just the life of being a copper. Yeah.
And we are going to miss having good people in there, like you who have left. Last question. How do the people at home know whether we're coming across a good cop or a bad cop? Not that it's as binary as that, but how do you know when they're going to be reasonable, or when I'm out riding at my 6 kilometre limit?
Yep.
Like, I don't know, am I being a bit irrational, just avoiding them? I don't want to talk to you. I'll go, you're on the left, I'm going right.
Yep. Look, I think that the way in which it happens very quickly. Just in that initial conversation. So my partner and I were walking our dogs the other day. I had my mask off. I have the exemption, and a sergeant made a beeline for me straight away, and I was like, oh God, here we go. But he opened the conversation extremely friendly and warm and inviting. He used neutral tones. He used neutral language.
He was like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah. Absolutely. And it wasn't just this straight away sort of assertive or aggressive or very direct response. And I think that that's probably how you can tell the difference, is that when you have police that are coming up and engaging friendly or opening and in calm and neutral, they're the good cops. They're the ones that are there to have a conversation and be rational and reasonable.
So there's no secret word I can say and they go, oh, yeah, I'll let you go on the speeding ticket.
No, there is no secret word.
It's a 924. It's a 924. How can the community last question. How can the community best support police, especially on the front line? Even as simple as just saying to them, hey, love your work, or whatever. I don't know. What's going to help members?
Just that, getting back to what Shane Patton talks about, back to basic policing and having community engagement, coming up to the police officers and saying hello, bringing your kids up to the police to meet them
in general.
Absolutely. Police love
turn on the
those
lights
opportunities.
For the kids. Yeah.
I mean, Matt, you've got to think about it, right? So the vast majority of the work that we do, it's dealing with, really crappy situations, and we're dealing with people that are, heightened emotions or having, drug psychoses, or they're really bad crooks, right?
Yeah.
We don't get people calling us up in the watch house to go, hi, I just wanted to call up and say, I think you're doing a great job.
Oh.
We everything that we do, there's this negative aspect to it. Any opportunity that police get to have some good positive engagement with the community, they love it.
Oh, okay. Because when I get my little 4-year-old wants, do you mind if you flash the lights on for a second? She just wants to see it. I feel like I'm putting you out.
They would love it. Oh. They would love it. They want to have that community engagement. They want children to be able to trust us. We want kids to believe that you can come to us and that we will take care of you in a situation of crisis. We want you to say hello to us. We want to be respected like we feel we once were, and we don't want people to be afraid of us. And I know that that's easier said than done given the circumstances that we're living in, but there are so many good cops out there, Matt, so many good cops, and they are struggling. I don't want them to quit. I just want them to continue to do their job the best way they know how, and for the community to go up and say, hey, I think you're doing a good job. Hang in there. This will all be over soon. And just, let's try and bridge that gap and bring community and police back together and not wait 20 years for that to happen.
Amazing, Krystle. In the absence of Dan Andrews and Shane Patton doing it, we're going to have to do it ourselves. The community are going to have to try and restore the bond and the trust.
Yes.
Thank you for coming in. I hope that we can be around to support you, what you're doing, and through what you're about to go through. And we're not here to just hear your story and hang you out to dry. I want people to support you. So links below for everything that we've talked about. And I'm sure we'll see you around again soon to talk about something else, because it has been nice to meet someone who's, I think you're well-spoken and rational, but clear. There's so many people who I talk to, they can't justify their position on any side. You know, I interview a lot of people, famous people and all sorts of people. And it's rare I meet someone who says, no, I believe this and here's why. It's nice.
I'm glad that it came across that way. As I said, I've never done anything like this in my entire life. Any critical incident that I ever went to where somebody had to do a media briefing, I would run around and I would try and find somebody else to do it because I didn't want to stand in front of the camera and say anything. So yeah, this was a first for me, and if I was clear and got a message across that hopefully brings community and police together, then I'd be really happy about that.
Awesome. All right, go to work. You got to hand in your resume.
I do.